I am 48 and my wife is 47. We've been married for 12 years. When we first met, she worked as a waitress at an all-night diner, but has always had the dream of working in finance or the banking industry. When we started dating, I told her I would do everything within my power to help make those dreams come true. I am a manager at an automotive shop and I was making around $48,000 per year, but I helped her out financially with student loan so she could continue her education in her field. Because she didn't have any money left to pay her bills, I would give her a couple of $100s here and there to make sure she could pay her rent and other bills on time. Over the next couple of years, with a lot of dedication from both of us, she eventually got a job as a finance manager at a local bank, but she did not start as a finance manager. She had to work through a few of the positions at the bank, which in turn made her a more well-rounded manager. It was a great position for her, and it paid very well. Eventually, she started doing so well that she didn't need my help anymore and was able to pay off all of her student loans and even offered to help me out financially. But I declined because I didn't need it. As the years went by, her salary kept increasing by leaps and bounds until it grew to well over $100,000 per year, which was way more than what I was making. With both of us making good money, we went on vacations, traveled to different countries, and even took a few of our friends with us on vacation and paid for them to join us. Things were really looking good. By this time, we had been dating for about 4 years before we got married. She didn't have any kids. I had one son from a previous relationship, and he was on his own. So it was just the two of us. Things started to slowly change about a year ago. She became distant, was working longer hours, and was always tired when she got home. I understood, so I tried to take the pressure off of her by cooking and cleaning the house when I got home. I always got home before she did, so I had time to put in a little housework before she walked through the door. But it seemed like the more I did try to help out, the more she wanted me to do, and she would always find something else that needed to be done. So I started to feel like I was never doing enough. I started to notice that she was spending more money buying new clothes and going out to lunch with her friends more often. I didn't put too much thought into her spending money on clothes. I just figured she wanted to make a good impression on her subordinates and the big boss. As time went, I really started seeing a slight shift in her behavior. She was more agitated with me and would snap at me for the smallest things. But I just tucked it up to stress from work. I knew she was under a lot of pressure, so I tried to be understanding and supportive. Then about 6 months ago, she started working even longer hours. She was never home, and when she was home, she was always on her phone or working on her laptop. I asked her what was going on, and she just brushed me off and said she was fine. But I could tell something was wrong. I didn't want to say too much, so I just left her alone thinking she would come to me when she was ready to talk. Her behavior started to get worse, and she started talking down on me like I was beneath her, and even started calling me names. I had never seen this side of her before, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I just tried to ignore it, thinking she would eventually snap out of it. One day, about 3 months ago, I came home from work, and she was already home and was on the phone yelling at someone. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could tell she was angry, so I went to the kitchen to start dinner. After a few minutes, I went back into the living room and told her I was starting dinner. She said she wasn't hungry and was going to bed. I didn't want to argue with her, so I let her go, but couldn't help but wonder what she was so angry about. Fast forward a few days later, and I got a text from my wife as I was driving home saying she would be working late. I replied and said, okay. Her meaning of working late is working until 7 to 8 p.m. But on this night, it was way past 9 p.m. and she wasn't home yet. As a result, I decided to drive up to the bank where she worked and her car wasn't there. I'd assumed she'd had gone to hang out with her friends and didn't say anything to me. She would always tell me she was going to hang out with her friends or coworkers, but she didn't this time. I started to get worried and called her phone, but she didn't answer. I left her a voicemail asking her to call me when she got a chance, but she never called back. While I was driving home, I was hoping she would text me or something, but that didn't happen. At about 1:30, she came strolling in and went straight to the shower without saying anything to me. At this point, I was angry, and after she got out of the shower, I confronted her and asked why in the hell did she not tell me she was going somewhere after work and not return my calls or text messages. She fired back and said, "Look, I was just hanging out with some of my friends and coworkers." And then she said I need to stop trying to control her. I said to her, "Excuse me, really?" I then said, "Okay," and walked off to sleep in the guest bedroom. The next morning, I went to work without saying anything to her, and she didn't say anything to me the whole day. No apologies, nothing. The fact that she did not apologize for failing to communicate with me was enough for me to be suspicious. Plus, I knew something was going on with her, but I just didn't know what it was. I decided to do some snooping around to see if I could find anything. I didn't want her to know I was snooping, so I had to be careful. I started going through her things when she wasn't home, and I found some strange things like credit card statements with charges that didn't make sense and hotel receipts. But I still didn't have any concrete evidence that she was doing anything, and I couldn't accuse her of anything. I found a notebook with what looked to be a list of names, phone numbers, and dates. At first, I thought it was just a list of her friends or something, but then I noticed there were some men's names as well. I decided to call one of the numbers on the list, and it turned out to be a hotel. I asked the person on the phone if they could tell me if this person had stayed there, and they said they could not give me that information due to privacy reasons. I also asked if they could check and see if the person had checked out, and they said they could not give me that information either. I began thinking to myself, why would my wife have a list of men's names and phone numbers in her notebook with dates next to them? After seeing that, I just knew she was cheating on me. I didn't need to ask any questions. I packed up my things and went and stayed with a longtime friend of mine. I conferred with him and told him what I found. He said that names and dates don't amount to much, but I said something is going on, and I need to find out what it is. I was gone for 2 days, and I didn't hear anything from my wife, so I decided to hire a private investigator. I didn't have time to keep wondering what she was doing. Plus, she was always angry when I confronted her about not communicating with me, and the fact that she had names and dates solidifies something was going on. On the 3rd day, I decided to call a private investigator to see what he could find out. I gave him my wife's name, where she worked, some of the friends I knew she hung out with, and some other information, and he said he would get right on it. The next day, the private investigator called me and said he had some information for me but wanted to meet in person, so we set up a meeting. When we met, he showed me footage of my wife leaving work with a few of her coworkers. They all left in separate cars and went to a fancy restaurant where they all had dinner. On one occasion, the private investigator noticed my wife reaching in her purse and texting someone. About an hour later, everyone was done with dinner, and they all walked out of the restaurant, including my wife. They all left, except my wife, who stayed behind and waited in her car. About half an hour later, a car pulled up next to hers, and a guy got out, walked over to her car, she got out, and they embraced and kissed. After they kissed, they got into their vehicles and drove to a hotel that was about 30 minutes away. They got out and walked past the front desk as if they already had a room. The private investigator gave me the footage and said he would continue to follow them. But I had seen enough. I didn't need to see anymore. The only thing I wanted to do now was to get out. After getting the footage, I called the lawyer the next day. We reside in New York, which is a no-fault state. I gave him the footage of my wife kissing another man and going to a hotel afterwards. He filed for divorce on my behalf, and I told him to go after everything. Alimony, retirement, anything I could get. As the days went by, I rarely talked to my wife. I only went back to the house to get more things when she was not home, and the big stuff I put into storage. Fast forward to 3 weeks, and my wife is served with divorce papers at her job, and the only thing she communicated to me was I wasn't getting a dime from her. I didn't respond to her statement. I was just waiting for the divorce hearing and showing the court the evidence at the divorce hearing. We went for alimony, retirement, and anything my lawyer could get. Anyway, after it was all said and done, I got $1,700 per month in alimony for 6 years. I wasn't able to get more because of the money I was making at my job. As far as the house, we didn't own it. We were renting it. After the hearing was done, I never heard from or saw my ex-wife again. I didn't care. I was enjoying the passive income she was giving me. Her cheating cost her over $100,000. Over the 6 years, she will finance my next house. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, I'll see you again. take care.